So we are recording. So hello, everybody. I'm Limor Elman, and welcome to Raising Confident Kids, Nurturing Body Image. This is my second in a series of 3 master classes. Thank you, Jill. And my goal today is to give you strategies for creating a healthy body image in a society that makes it really so hard. We're going to talk about the power of modeling as a parent, and we're going to talk about the power of what I call thought work, which is really cognitive behavioral modeling. So I'm an anti-diet parenting coach, and I'm a certified intuitive eating counselor. I coach parents to raise kids to feel neutral about their bodies and food. I also design and deliver workshops just like this in real life to groups of parents or women in workplaces. I consider this talk essential because it is eating disorder prevention. Dieting is a gateway to eating disorders. And unfortunately, eating disorders are on the rise and affect children at a younger and younger age every year. A few admin things, just a disclaimer that I am not a substitute for medical care or mental health care. And that I do have a workbook for you that I am going to put in the chat right now. And I encourage you to take a look at it, but don't look ahead if you don't mind. And tell me if you can open that. You should be able to open that. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can open that? Yay. Also in the chat, I would love to know where you are and the age of your kids. Just your location and age of kids so that we can all get to know each other that way. I'm going to talk for about 30 to 45 minutes and then leave time at the end for questions. And then I will unrecord at 1:15 if anyone has any real personal questions, and I will answer them then. If you have questions that come up while I'm talking, just put them in the chat. But sometimes if I'm really engaged, hard for me to see it, you might want to just raise your hand and, raise your virtual hand. All right, so don't forget to follow along in your workbook. I don't like PowerPoint because I feel it takes away from the personal aspect of Zoom, as personal as it can be. And so instead, I give you a workbook that you can follow along with and use later. But I will have a couple of things to share. So this is a preview of what I do during my one-on-one coaching sessions. My coaching packages are my signature offers, and you can find out a lot more about them on my website. And put that in the chat. And I would love to have a food freedom call with you so I can offer you specific suggestions for you and your kids. What we're going to talk about isn't specific to you, of course. And a lot of what I'm going to talk about is really nuanced. So if you want to get some ideas for how to implement these things in your home with your own kids, click on the Calendly and set up some time with me. All right, I want to tell you a little bit about my personal life. So I dieted for 30 years, 30, unsuccessfully. My weight went up and down, which is an expected outcome of dieting, but I didn't know then that it was an expected outcome of dieting. I yo-yoed for all of those years with the hope that I would find a way to stay thin, and that never happened. And what did happen is that my mental health suffered a lot. I never, ever woke up in the morning and said, I just love dieting. I love starving myself and exercising in a way that feels horrible. I never said that, and no one says that. That's because dieting sucks. Little did I know that my failure in dieting actually had nothing to do with me. It was diet culture, the system of oppression all around us that was selling me this faulty way of living. I had no idea that 98% of people who diet gain the weight back within 2 to 5 years, and 2/3 of those people gain even more weight than what they started at. Thank God, a couple of years ago, I literally stumbled upon a thing called intuitive eating, and my life changed. And I know that sounds dramatic, but it really, really, I promise you, is true. I entered this tsunami of learning. All I did was devour, pun intended, anything related to intuitive eating, podcasts, books, whatever. And I discovered that intuitive eating is a movement, is an approach to food, and is the right we are all born with, the right to honor our hunger, feel our fullness, and find satisfaction in food. Intuitive eating is an anti-diet approach to eating that focuses on our internal cues rather than the external cues that dieting teaches us. It took me a while, but now I am completely free with food and my body. Thank you, Jill. And I consider this enormous. This is a huge victory. And it occurred to me that I needed to take this win, this real profound and deep transformation, and share it with you and give you the tools to get there and make sure your kids don't do what I did. I discovered that my body is not a problem to fix, but rather diet culture is. And I discovered that my body can exist in any form without apology. I learned that sizeism, weight stigma, weight bias, fat phobia, fat discrimination are all terms that our society has not yet fully accepted as major social justice issues, just like racism, ableism, sexism, you name the ism. Again, this was profound and life-changing. Now, enter my kids. My kids, when I discovered this, were tweens. Now they're 14 and 17. I started freaking out over my kids. I had been encouraging dieting because that's all I knew. I restricted what they ate. No, you can't have another muffin. You had one for breakfast. Carbs aren't really so great for your body. That's restriction. I pressured them to eat healthy foods. Carrots are good for your eyes. You should eat those. That's pressure. I made them wait for treats, and I assigned morality to certain foods. Broccoli is good for you, candy is not. And worst of all, I think, is that I talked about my desire to be thinner. I learned that this was the exact opposite of intuitive eating because I was not encouraging them to listen to their bodies. Instead, I was encouraging them to listen to me and my body. This had to stop. I worked hard to stop this over the last several years through some amazing coaching, and I discovered that coaching was key for me. And so I decided to take my decades of experience as an educator, as a coach, as a workshop facilitator, and apply it to this world. And here I am serving the community of millions of women and moms, primarily. I welcome dads too, who want to make sure their kids don't have that messed up experience with food and body. Now, if you can't listen any further beyond right now, I'm going to tell you the two most important things that I am going to discuss today. Number one, modeling is the most effective parenting tool. Model the kind of behavior that you'd like your children to do. We have tons of research that this is the case. Modeling is the best tool, number one. Two, thought work. Thought work. Challenge your negative body feelings consciously, intentionally. Change the way you think so that you can change the way you feel and take different actions. Remind yourself that you have the ability to change your actions. Okay. I want to define confidence and diet culture because that's essentially what we're talking about. Confidence. So, confidence is the feeling you get when you are assured in your skin, in your own body, because you believe and appreciate your skills, abilities, and qualities. It's a feeling that no matter what happens, you will have your own self, your own back to fall upon, and that you trust yourself entirely. Confidence is about saying to yourself that you are good no matter what your body looks like, no matter what you think people are critical of, no matter what people say about you. Your narrative when you are confident is, I have complete trust in me. Now, regardless of whether you have this, I don't want you to freak out. Regardless of whether you have this, you can help your kids to gain this confidence. I hear so many parents worried that their kids are going to hate their bodies. I get it. I worried too. I have to get my kid to like their body. It makes a whole lot of sense. We're living in a world in which one body type is revered, the thin ideal. Having my teens develop negative feelings about their bodies freaked me the hell out. I am doing this so that you don't have to freak out and so that you can help your children develop the confidence. Again, regardless of what their bodies look like and regardless of what your body looks like. Unfortunately, one of the biggest societal forces, if not the biggest, that prevents us from developing confidence is this powerful force called diet culture. You can move on to page 2, I believe, in your workbooks. Diet culture is dieting, just so that we're all on the same page, is essentially intentional weight loss through food restriction and exercise. Diet culture is a powerful system of beliefs that worships thinness and equates it to health and moral virtue. Diet culture promotes weight loss as a means of attaining higher status, which means you spend a whole lot of your time, energy, and money on making your body shrink. Diet culture demonizes certain ways of eating while elevating others, which means you're forced to just be hyper vigilant all the time about what you're putting in your mouth, and you become ashamed about what you're putting in your mouth. Diet culture is oppression. Diet culture oppresses people who don't match up with its supposed picture of health. That definition that you see on page 2 is from Christy Harrison, who is seriously my shero. She wrote the book Anti-Diet, and you'll see later I gave you a whole list of resources, including that book. So the thing about diet culture that a lot of people push back on is they say, hey, but Lee Moore, aren't thin bodies healthier bodies? I love that one. Actually, that thought that thin bodies are healthier bodies, which was really prominent in the 70s, 80s, 90s, aughts, has been debunked. The BMI is no longer a valid measure of health. But unfortunately, the cajillion-dollar healthcare industry and diet industry continues to use it as a measurement tool. But the thing is that study after study after study has shown us that it just doesn't indicate anything. A large meta-analysis of weight studies in 2023 showed us that social determinants of health are better predictors of overall health than body type. These are things like stress, your social life, your sleep, your mental health care, your level of education, your housing. And we know that genetics plays a huge part in overall health. The thing is that society places enormous emphasis on exercise and eating when it comes to health. But actually, I'm going to show you that it really impacts children's health very little. So I am just going to share my screen and show you what I mean. Okay, so this is, can you see my screen? Do you see two slides or one? One, excellent. So this is what kids think. This is what we think makes kids healthy. Physical activity and what they eat and health food. What really makes kids healthy is this. Aren't you proud of me? I figured out how to put my bubbly head in there. Coolest thing ever.
I was totally wondering how you did that. So
It's so easy. So here's actually what makes kids healthy. Take a look at that. Take a look at dietary pattern and physical activity compared to all these other really important social determinants of health. Is your mind baffled? Mine is not, because I've known this for a while, but a lot of people are like, what? Are you serious? Okay. Hold please while I get my, sorry. Okay. So dieting usually results in a cycle of restriction and shame. And I want to show you what that looks like. Again, with my bubbly head. Here it comes. You see it? Ah, there we are. All right, so this is the candy version of restriction. So what you see is that the parent feels distress over what the child is going to eat. Then the parent limits, actually, maybe you can't see. Oh, there we go. Then the parent limits what the child eats. And the child feels deprived. So the child sneaks food. And the parent finds out, and the restriction continues. I mean, the cycle of restriction continues. And you can see just how damaging that can be. And that's what diet culture teaches us. Guys, I gotta get my, okay. Now, I do want to scare you kind of to an extent, because I don't want you to get your kids to diet, and I don't want you to diet either. So I'm going to tell you about what happens to kids when they diet. Dieting encourages, and this is on page 3 of your workbook, dieting encourages binary thinking, black and white thinking. This food is good, this food is bad. We eat all day long, right? So if you are constantly thinking in your head, this is good, this is bad, you start to internalize that. And then all of a sudden, your entire world is black and white. And you know what? The world is not black and white. And actually looking at the world in black and white is really an unpleasant and an unhealthy way to experience the world. And I know you know this. Dieting also is a hyper fixation on nutrition and exercise at the expense of developing other self-nurturing hobbies, like self-regulating skills, like, skills to make you feel good. Dieting is hyper focused on your appearance rather than your inner qualities. Dieting does not encourage or celebrate individuality. So you're left trying really hard to look like everyone else, and you discount the importance of diversity in the world. Dieting encourages other forms of stigma. Dieting minimizes your abilities because unless you look one way, you're not good enough. And this translates into so many other areas of your life. Dieting confuses the sense of who you are. Dieting diminishes your freedom in the world. Dieting increases socialization. It encourages unhealthy distraction towards your body. It creates negative self-talk. It increases shame and blame. It encourages bullying. And of course, it reduces confidence and self-esteem. All right. So if these are not reasons that you don't want to get your kid to diet, I don't know what is. So like I said before, dieting, as you can possibly imagine, is a gateway to eating disorders. And that's because dieting teaches us to rely on external messages rather than our intuition, our internal messages that tell us how to eat, when to eat, what to eat, and the same thing about exercise. The more we stay away from the internal messaging, the more we distrust our bodies. And the more we distrust our bodies in all sorts of ways, not only with food and exercise. Okay. One of the most recent studies actually said that like a whole lot of people suffer from eating disorders. We actually don't have great statistics on eating disorder prevalence, unfortunately, because a lot of it is unreported because of the shame associated with eating disorders. But the most recent study that I looked at said that 1 in 7 male individuals and 1 in 5 females will experience an eating disorder by the age of 40. I don't want to describe eating disorders. I have a feeling you know what they are: binge eating disorder, anorexia nervosa, bulimia, and there are others. And also there's disordered eating, which may not necessarily fall into those categories, but it is a kind of thinking that I described where, you are extremely preoccupied and it's distracting and preventing you from living, your fullest life. I want you to make sure you watch for dieting behaviors in your children. These are some. If your children are eating less or more than typically at meals. I am not saying this is the case all the time. I am not saying that children will develop an eating disorder if you see these behaviors, but sometimes they will. And it's all very nuanced. And that's why a coaching session with me is really helpful, because we can talk this through. Also, I'm not an eating disorder specialist. I do not treat eating disorders. Really important for you to know that. Anyway, these are some of the ways dieting appear in children: eating less or more than typically at meals, snacking all the time, rarely or never sitting down for a meal, fasting, having things like liquid instead of a meal, protein shakes, talking about their own or other people's bodies in a negative way, suddenly not interested in an entire food group like carbohydrates, hiding food, sneaking food. We talked about this. Preoccupation with their body. They start to talk about their body a whole lot. Fixation with the mirror. Preoccupation with exercise. Tracking calories burned, steps taken. Talking about their desire to lose weight. Talking about their desire to gain muscle and lose fat. Wellness talk. Wearing very tight clothing, wearing very loose clothing, weighing themselves repeatedly. Sorry if I scared you. And you need to talk with a medical professional if you start to see that these behaviors are repetitive. I do not treat eating disorders, but I can help you identify whether or not it is. All right. So here's the thing. So we know again, contrary to what diet culture tells us, confidence is not achieved by having a thin body, by shrinking your body, by restricting food, by dieting. You might think you feel better when you do. And I understand that. But look at all the detrimental things it does. And most importantly, does dieting and does a thinner body give you the skills you need to face the world with confidence, with a sense of trust? I don't think so. So, Limor, what does? The way to create confidence is to believe in yourself. Remember, I told you about the thought work and the modeling. Parent modeling is the #1 tool. The way to create confidence is to believe in yourself, to believe that you are good enough. If you think awesome thoughts about yourself, you are awesome. So it's about changing your beliefs, which changes your thoughts and your feelings and your actions. And that's what creates confidence. I call this thought work. Thought work. Confidence can be created through the kind of thought work I coach. I know this because I've seen other people get there. And I too have gotten there through this same kind of coaching. This is essentially, again, a cognitive behavioral approach. It's really such a common approach, actually, to coaching. So remember, modeling is the most effective parenting tool. So you're going to try and model this so that your kids can try and do it too. In my coaching, this kind of thought work trains your brain to think intentionally. I coach you to not become a victim of your emotions and instead to learn how emotions are created and how we process them. I teach you how to create emotions on demand. I teach you how to learn to produce an emotion by thinking intentional thoughts. So confidence is created, once again, just to some, by you truly believing and trusting yourself and working over and over again to reframe your thoughts so that you have different thoughts and thus feelings about yourself. This is intentional thought work, and I'm a really good coach at coaching people on thought work. Now, the other thing I tell parents is that you have to also layer on a thick amount of self-compassion. Because not having confidence at times is a perfectly imperfect way of existing in the world. And in diet culture, it takes time to develop. We must give ourselves an enormous amount of self-compassion to develop this. Everyone screws up parenting in some way. It's like this intensely challenging job, and there's really no training on how to do it, especially in the tricky area of body size. So you got to layer on that self-compassion, which what I do is when I layer on my self-compassion, I treat myself as if I am my best friend. And I say to myself, what would you say to your best friend, Limor, in this area? Okay. On page, I think it's 4. Okay. You will see that I've asked you to consider the question, why do you have a body? And why does your child have a body? But right now, what I'd like you to do is to consider the question, why do you have a body? And I'd like to give you a couple of minutes to explore that. get out a piece of paper and a pen and write down whatever comes to mind. I call this a thought download. This is part of the kind of coaching I do with my clients. A thought download is literally whatever comes to mind in responding to the question, why do I have a body? I'm going to give you about 4 to 5 minutes. It's not why other people want you to have a body. It's why you have a body. I'm going to give you about 90 seconds. All right, you guys. Do you need more time? Okay. So, would anyone like to share their responses to the question, why do you have a body? Rachel,
I'll share.
thank you.
So there are like things I immediately thought of. Like I walk my kids to school every day. So the first thing I wrote down was to walk my kids to school. I thought about like physically getting from one place to another. If I do a lot of running around, I wrote down to build things and make things, like just the things I'm doing around the house, or to cook dinner or carry groceries in from the car. Like I thought of a lot of utilitarian things. And then I feel like it slowly evolved to like deeper things. Like then I wrote like to grow children or to like house my mind, like my body holds my brain, and to feel like physical pleasure. So I wrote down like feeling the warm sun or like enjoying physical touch. So like the pleasures that come from our body. So those were the things I wrote down.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Does anybody else want to share?
I like my head went very like sensory immediately. I'm like,
Mm.
hear things and express things, to communicate, to like experience, like navigate in an environment, and to like give and receive love.
Mhm. Great, thank you. Yes. Dina, do you want to share yours if there's
I
anything different?
Yeah, no, it was interesting. It was a lot similar to the same lines, but I wrote to experience joy. It's a vehicle for
Mhm.
experiencing joy.
Right. So my belief, uh, my narrative, which I believe is on the second page, which is 2 pages later, is that women are more than just a body. I believe that my body is a vehicle through which I experience life. My body is a vehicle through which I experience life. My body allows me to feel emotions, express my thoughts, teach, love, learn, dance, celebrate, parent. That's what a body's purpose is, to experience life. That's it. Your body's purpose is not to be beautiful. Your body is not a tool for entertainment. Your body is just a body. It's only yours. Full stop. This is body neutrality. And this is the way a young child thinks about their body. But slowly over time, diet culture infiltrates all of these thoughts, and they don't think their bodies are only for them to experience life. This is a really tough place to get to for many, many women because of diet culture and the patriarchy, which are absolutely linked. It takes time to fully embody this. And part of this is practicing that thought work that says to you, to yourself, my body is a tool to experience life over and over again. If you truly believe that, then your feelings and your actions around your body and your kids' bodies and other bodies around you are going to change eventually. But I can also tell you that if you don't have a coach, might not happen, because you really need someone to guide you through the experience of internal change. All right, I gave you a quiz, which is on the page before the future body narrative page. You see that? I don't want you to fill it out now, but it's just a great way for you to take a look at what your body image assumptions or beliefs are. If there are no's, a lot of no's, then there's something to think about. If there are a lot of yeses, then you're in better shape. It's not a scientific, assessment, but it's just something to give you some understanding of how you view your own body. Okay. So I want to now give you tips on how to make sure your kids develop body neutrality. So please read along with me. I'm on the page that says, I realize I didn't put page numbers on this. I'm on the page that says body neutral parenting tips. All right. Remove body talk from your home. Body talk associates big emotions with your child's body or any kind of emotions. And this is already something they deal with out there in the world. Their home should be a space free of body talk. If you're commenting on your own body negatively, chances are good that your kids will too. This is hard to accomplish. This takes time. But if you don't pay attention to bodies ever, and you slowly start to change that thought, I promise you, it becomes just a natural way of being. Number 2, pay attention to your child's character rather than their appearance. Same idea. All right. Talk about the skills they have that you like. Talk about the way they have behaved that you think it makes them human. Talk about their emotions, their feelings. Don't talk about appearance. A lot of parents say to me, really, I can't just say like, oh, you look so pretty in that dress. You know what? If we weren't living in diet culture, I'd say, yeah, no problem. But we are. And so they're getting those messages anyway. You want your message at home to be free of any kind of understanding about bodies so that they can develop the neutral idea around bodies, that their body is just there to experience life. Remember, you are the best model for them. All right. Number 3, keep your body comments to yourself. So when you comment on someone else's weight or body or your own, they internalize these messages like, oh, you look so great. A lot of people say that when they see each other, for the first time in a while. You look so good. Oh my God. I love your blah. And even complimenting weight loss is actually is not encouraging body neutrality. Encouraging weight loss is actually elevating weight loss. Okay. Remember, bodies, the way they look, it doesn't matter. Bodies come in all shapes and sizes, right? So you are going to celebrate, honor, make all bodies in your home feel like bodies that can experience life. All right, this is my favorite. Throw out your scale. Hiding it is tough and not really a great idea, as that a lot of like really attuned, sensitive kids will figure out where it is. So if you have to, hide it. You probably know what you weigh. And if your kids absorb the idea that you're monitoring your weight, then they too think that that is okay to do. And that can become, that can just, I told you all about it. That can become something that they internalize as good. But actually, it's really a measurement and a judgment of your body, and it encourages all sorts of dieting. Okay, number 5, encourage joyful movement. Competitive movement is all over the place. My kids do competitive exercise, my kids are on sports teams. This is the way our culture is. However, if you start to see that your kids are, doing strange things around food and body, you may want to consider the sports teams they're on, because a lot of sports teams pay unnecessary attention to the size and shape of your body. And competition in and of itself means that some bodies are good and some bodies aren't. And you don't want to send that message to your kids. All right, and my favorite, follow body diverse social media accounts. And I have some for you. I have some Instagram accounts on the next 2 pages after that I love. These are my favorites. All right. So I am going to stop right there. And you also see that I gave you a list of books that I recommend. My next masterclass will be on July 18th, and I'll be talking about sugar myths. The class is Help, My Kid is Obsessed with Sugar. The best way for you to find out more about me, again, is to set up a free family food freedom call, which I put the Calendly link in the message there for you. I have a group coaching program starting on July 1st, and that is Fundamentals of Intuitive Eating. It's an 8-week course. Mondays Monday evenings, starting July 1st. And I have a 2-day Mind Your Body program starting in 2 weeks as well. And those are both on my website. And I'll be teaching at the Soma Adult School in the fall. So you could take that class with me if you'd like to. All right, guys. So does anyone have any questions? Lay it on me.
I have lots of questions. Oh, so go ahead,
Awesome.
Rachel. Rachel, you start, Rachel.
I think I heard
I
her.
use the raise hand feature.
Go for it, Rachel.
Leva, do you want to go? Okay.
You
I
go,
also
Rachel.
apologize if it's loud. I hear in my backyard all of a sudden because there's always landscaping, just always. My general question that's like always in my mind is, how does intuitive eating work in this world where like much of the food that's around is not real food and has been, at least what I've always, I don't know if this is a myth or real, that like processed food has been designed, right? I remember like watching these documentaries about McDonald's, like it's made to sort of override your ability to intuitively know when to stop. That like it makes it so you want to eat more. And so
Yeah.
that's something I've been curious about as I hear about intuitive eating or like
Mhm.
candy bars. You know, I guess that's sort of the sugar stuff too. And I know you only have time for a brief answer, but that's sort of
No,
what
that's okay.
front of mind for me as I like read.
Yeah. So here's the thing. There is nutrition in every morsel of food. Okay. Now, the labels that we place on foods and the labels that we place on foods that we teach our kids about is more damaging than the actual act of eating the food. So if you are saying we're not going to have McDonald's because that's processed food and that's bad food, it's possible that your kids will really want McDonald's because you're saying that it's bad food, and bad food is actually kind of exciting. But then also when they eat the bad food, they internalize that they're bad. So I would say that it's not true that there are foods that aren't real. All foods are real. Now, there have been studies that show that, yes, what you said, that these foods are made with chemicals that, do whatever they do to your brain. Okay. But I will say that the act of restricting those foods is much more damaging than eating those foods. When you are restricting, it tells your brain, I got to have more of these. And that's kind of what those studies, which I don't know all about those studies, but I have also heard that a lot of those studies were conducted by the companies themselves. So really, who's doing the studying? A lot of nutritionists want people, anti-diet nutritionists, want people to see that any food is okay food. Once you label food as good and bad, that's when the tricky part begins. That make sense? Yeah. Okay. Aliba.
Well, I know this is also much longer conversations, but
Okay.
but I guess my maybe my most pressing question too, and Rachel's kids are a little younger, Dana's kids are closer to mine, and that sending these messages and trying to make these kinds of rules and things without an eye roll and already in a teenage years is quite different, as you know. But I guess so. I guess the top of mind thing on a lot of the tips is like there's so much outside of our control on this and in their kids' environment. And it's like it's one thing for me to say like, okay, I'm not gonna body talk in the house and whatever. But like I guess one of my biggest challenges right now is how do I respond to her body talk? So, her comments of I feel fat or I have to diet or or all these things, like rebuffing those in a way that that, you know, and it's in the context of being like a teenager that, you know, like anything mom says is wrong anyway, and what do I know anyway? And, you know, so it's not like,
Mhm.
I don't know, the kind of, you know, self-care
Mm.
psychology kind of
Yeah.
conversations is, you know, gonna go over with an eye roll. Like how to, right,
Yeah.
what I'm
Right.
saying, you
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
get it. Yeah, completely. So a lot of times I find that kids who are opening up and sharing their feelings about their bodies actually want a parent to listen. And that's about it. And just be with them and sort of take space with them rather than coming to the rescue with a canned answer. Um, Because if you're silent, then hopefully more will come out. Um, if you really feel the need to say something, you've been silent, they've been talking, you really feel the need to say something. In response to I feel fat, the absolute worst thing you can say is no, you're beautiful. You're not fat, you're beautiful. Because, you know, does that mean that fat people can't be beautiful? What is that saying? That kind of is saying that. So that's actually the worst thing you can say. Um, what you can say is, you know what, diet culture sucks. And your body is just as good as anybody's body. And it's just that the world is telling us this, or society is telling us this, depending on how old your kid is. Um, eye rolls, you know, I would just like, it's an eye roll. I mean, if they're like slapping you in the face, that's another thing, but just an eye roll. You know, some of these things you just have to say to yourself, this is just a normal part of development. Um, so is it active bullying, Liba?
Um, no, it's her own negative self thoughts,
Right.
not from someone else.
Mm-hmm. Right. So do you know why she has those negative self thoughts? Negative body thoughts? Does she tell you
Um,
why?
I mean, I think because of diet culture and middle school culture, I think she believes those things. I think she
Mhm,
is inundated with images of things that don't look like her, and that, you
mhm,
know,
mhm,
so that she aspires to be that instead.
mhm. And so it's really nuanced here. I mean, your language really just has to be all the time, has to be about the idea that the shape and size of your body just doesn't matter. And it's not going to take 1 week of this. It's
Yeah,
not probably not going to take 1 month. It's
yeah,
going to take a while. But you need to give her the space and the comfort and to nurture the idea that an answer may not be right there, but to give her that time because middle school is like horrendous in this regard. It's absolutely horrendous. Um, don't talk about your body at all. Make that a rule in the house. Don't talk about other people's bodies at all.
mhm,
Take a look at her Instagram feeds. Is she
mhm.
following diverse body types? Have
Oh,
her follow,
that was
hello,
into
have her follow diverse body types. I gave you a list in the
yeah, yeah,
workbook.
yeah,
See who she's following. Take her phone. You
yeah,
probably know her password.
yeah.
See who she's following. Because if she is all day long looking at thin body types, then it's just reinforcing the message all day long, right? It's tough. It's not going to be a right away fix, but you really have to make an effort to just simply not talk about bodies. Don't compliment bodies. Don't discuss what you're putting on your body, what you're wearing, your makeup. Just get that away from the entire like lexicon in your house.
Mm.
And you start to see the shift over time, slowly. And again, it's like we have to talk about little ways, like the exact conversation, like what exactly happens, because then I can like really respond in a more nuanced way. Do you have a more nuanced, like, do you have a situation that you want to share?
Well, I mean, it's you know, it's a lot of that, and it's very prevalent right now. And
Yeah.
it's just like that, you know, I feel like if I would say diet culture sucks and these are things, she's entirely going to hear that as, oh, mom agrees and mom thinks I'm fat. Not that there's anything wrong with being fat, but like that's also like a message. It's, you know, it's what she hears versus what I say too in those, in
Mm-hmm.
this kind of, in
Mm-hmm.
these, you know, years and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I feel very like stumped. I feel like, you know, I've had this conversation, I've read these things, whatever. Like you know, we don't have the scale. I do everything I can to not talk to eliminate to have had eliminated, you know, like I don't talk about my body, I don't talk about her body, I don't, you know. Um, there's a lot of reaction, you know, like of course when we're out in the world, we were just at a bar mitzvah this weekend, you know, there is all those comments and reactions, whatever. I still don't know how to like fend those or say anything not or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
other than just kind of ignore them and then divert, move on to something else. Um, but yeah, I just feel like it's getting worse, not better. And I'm just,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've said things too about like that, you know, she likes a lot of K-pop and follows K-pop. And I'm like, you know, I've been honest about my journey, my years of dieting. I've said, you know, like I've damaged my body. I've done all these things that, you know, like I shouldn't have done in an effort to try to look a certain way or not. It's not helpful. And, you know, and I've said like, you know, I'm 5 foot. Like there's nothing in this world, nothing I could eat, nowhere exercise, no nothing that's going to change. You
Mm-hmm.
know, there's nothing humanly possible to do that's going to make me look like a K-pop star, nor do I ever want to. And, you know, like something of some balance of like, but getting that reality check into a 13-year-old is like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. And so it might be the time for you to say as little as possible
Mhm.
and instead listen and ask about her feelings,
Yeah.
because that's really what she wants to talk about.
Yeah.
Do you spend quality time? I think concrete advice is to spend quality time with her in a way that she identifies as fun, and to do that regularly.
Yeah.
So to say, like, to create this special time, and it could be
Yeah.
20 minutes a day,
Yeah.
whatever she wants to do. So that
Yeah.
you are really there. Don't bring your phone. Your
Right.
distractions are gone.
Yeah.
It's just about her.
Yeah.
Because what could be happening is that even though you feel like you've removed some of this talk from your house, there's still a tiny little bit of this
Mhm.
in your mind because it's
Yeah.
so hard to remove
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And she picks up on that.
Right.
And
Right.
she also picks up on your emotional response to when she says things like, I'm so
Right.
fucking fat.
Right.
You'll change your body,
Yeah. Yeah.
you'll have a gesture, or you'll
Yeah.
whatever. So it's almost like you have to be like stone, literally a stone, like the most neutral, expression that you can ever have, like nothing.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Because it could be that she's doing this to get a rise out of you, because then the emotional connection is there,
Mm.
even though it's negative connection, it's still there. And
Yeah.
so that's why I asked about what kind of positive connection do you
Right.
have?
Right.
And what kind of like special connection are you giving her,
Yeah.
free of distractions?
Yeah. And there's like a
Stone
lot
cold
of
face.
volatility. There's like a lot of like, she'll like, lose her temper, get crazy angry that like, at blaming us for like her, genes.
Mhm.
Like I got these genes from you. But like the reason I'm heavy is because of you or whatever, like
Mhm. Mhm.
which I
Yeah.
obviously